Thank you for joining us again. I hope you did enjoy that excerpt from the Global Communion Service for the month of August. Indeed, it is the month of beauty. And so joining me now, oh yeah, let me do my thing. Joining me now on the show, I have Itohan Olomu-Agbodo. You know her. She is a legal practitioner, and she is the host of your TV shows, The Courthouse and U.Gov. It's so great to have you here on
Thank
set
you,
with
Zoe.
me. And just so
Thanks
you
for
know,
having
right, The Courthouse and U.Gov are two of the most educational, informative, and insightful programs. I'm good, right?
I'm blushing. I don't know if it's showing on my dark skin,
good,
but
right?
I'm sure I'm blushing.
Dark people like us, we don't blush. But it's so good to have you on
thanks for
the
having
program
me.
today. Great. So, very quickly before we move on, the Global Communion Service, always a blessing, with our man of God.
Yeah.
What particularly did you get from that? So,
Okay, when Pastor went like, I know you're waiting for the theme of the month and it's going to be irregular. I was like, what is it going to be again this time? And I had the month of beauty and I was just like, wow, I'm beautiful. So I just felt instantly, I was like, oh, thank you, Lord Jesus, for the beauty upon my life. For I'm beautiful. Everything about me is beautiful, my family and all that. So I just picked the word beauty, and this sort of still ringing in my brain, and I'm feeling so beautiful right now.
That is it. That is it. And it's an awareness.
Yeah.
It's an awareness, knowing that there's just something irresistible about you. Everywhere you go, people
I'm dressed by the beauty of God. Because I said, they used to say, nothing makes you complete. You're not complete, or you're not completely dressed without a smile. But now I have the beauty of God. So wherever I go, I'm beautiful. Yes. So favor and everything good is attracted to me because of that beauty of God upon my life. So what's more can I say?
your confession and your proclamation, not just in the month of August, but going forward, because that's really who God has made you to be. Okay, so Itohan is joining me today because we are about to talk about very important things, especially things that have been happening in the news. Yesterday, we saw something that we haven't seen in a while, the hashtag Revolution Now protest. If you do remember, it was in the news yesterday, and we had some updates on that, but we will get to that in a minute when we talk about the headlines. That's the What's Trending segment. So do stay with us. Remember, you have an opportunity to discuss this with us and share some perspectives on any of the trending stories that we are bringing to you today. So stay with us.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. From your favorite station, reaching you right where you are.
At home, at work, or on the move.
We are right at your doorstep.
Never again miss a thing around the globe.
We are minutes by minutes on world events.
No matter how close or far from your world.
News from the right perspective.
News as it should be.
We are.
We are. We are.
Love What Plus News.
Love What Plus News.
Love What Plus News. Welcome to What's Trending, and we have a couple of stories for you that are sort of making the headlines almost in every daily, in every newspaper, and probably on every news outlet or news station you would hear these stories being talked about or discussed. Let's begin with the first one. Gunshots as protesters disrupt activities at Lagos stadiums. Now, activities at the National Stadium, Lagos, were on Monday disrupted by protests by some Nigerians agitating for a revolution. Reports say the protests carried out by members of the Revolution Now also created panic at the Teslim Balogun Stadium, where the ITTF Africa Cup held. Now, some athletes who spoke with newsmen said they canceled their training plans, while others said the protests caused commotion at the stadium. There was pandemonium during the protests when security operatives stormed the venue to send off the protesters by tear gassing them and blocking the entrance to the National Stadium. One of the protest leaders, Sanya Olujuwon, said the demands were simple: free education, payment of the 30,000 naira minimum wage, and an end to killings going on in the country.
Okay.
Let's take the second one.
Okay, the second story here is government to supervise El Zazaki's travel for treatment abroad. The Kaduna State High Court has granted leader of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, Ibrahim El Zazaki, and his wife, Zinat, permission to travel to an Indian hospital for medical treatment. The ruling was not without conditions attached, as El Zazaki and Zinat must not go to any other hospital other than the one they specifically requested. Also, the travel of the Shiite leader and his wife must be under the strict supervision of the state officials. The IMN leader, whose members are also known as Shiites, and his wife were absent from court during the ruling by Justice Darius Kobo on Monday. Both El Zazaki and Zinat were granted permission to travel for medical treatment following injuries they sustained during the clash of the IMN's members with the Nigerian army on the 15th of December 2015.
All right, moving on to the next story. Herdsmen menace banditry, Lagos, Benue, Ebonyi, and 5 others to acquire drones. Well, there are indications that at least 9 states will soon acquire remotely piloted aircraft or drones and other devices as part of measures to tackle kidnapping and killing in their states. The report listed some of the states that had made moves to deploy drones in tackling bandits, kidnappers, and killer herdsmen as Lagos, Osun, Ondo, Kaduna, and Anambra states. Efforts by some state governments to obtain necessary safety and security clearances to acquire the drones, though, were failing due to the strict conditions stipulated by federal government agencies responsible for granting the approval. At an earlier meeting with the Southwest traditional rulers at the presidential villa on Wednesday, President Muhammadu Buhari said that he would direct relevant federal agencies to speedily approve applications by states for drones.
Okay, and the next story is on UNICEF saying that 1 million children are out of school in Kano State. The United Nations Children Fund's representative in Kano State, Peter Hawkins, has said no fewer than 1 million children are out of school in the state. Hawkins said this on Monday in Kano during a 4-day workshop organized for commissioners and permanent secretaries from the 19 northern states. The workshop was organized by the Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning in collaboration with Kano State government and UNICEF. Hawkins said the figure of the out-of-school children, which comprised formal and informal, was obtained from the Federal Ministry of Education. He noted that Nigeria needed to redouble efforts in addressing the critical issue of out-of-school children and in improving investment in the education sector.
Okay, and in other stories, EU counsels ECOWAS on dangers of delayed electoral reforms. The head of the European Union delegation to Nigeria and Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Ketil Carlson, has alerted the sub-region to the dangers of postponing political reforms. Carlson spoke yesterday at a symposium on the promotion of inclusivity in the electoral process, women, youth, and persons with disability at the 6th ECOWAS network of electoral commissions. He stressed that such changes were needed mostly after any general election, like the recently concluded 2019 polls in Nigeria. He said President Muhammadu Buhari did not sign the electoral bill that would have automated the entire process. The president had cited nearness to the election for refusing to sign the piece of legislation, promising to assent to it after the general elections.
Okay, now the next story. NECA seeks suspension of forex restriction on milk importation. Following plan by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to restrict foreign exchange for milk importation, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, has urged the Apex Bank to suspend the policy as it has the potential of crippling businesses with attendant job losses. The employers argue that due to the gap that would be created between local supply and demand, unscrupulous elements would have a field day importing milk with huge loss of revenue to the government, massive loss of jobs with attendant social consequences. They argue that that if the policy is implemented, consequences will also include capacity underutilization, as the entire food and beverage sector would adversely be affected. The Director General of NECA, Timothy Olawale, urged the CBN to revisit the policy direction and create an environment for further engagement.
All right, we have one more story, and that's in sports. Super Eagles forward Samuel Chukwueze rejoins Villarreal ahead of the 2019-2020 La Liga season. The Super Eagles winger Samuel Chukwueze has rejoined his Spanish club Villarreal. Chukwueze, who scored once as Nigeria finished third in the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt, was given an extended break. The Yellow Submarine took to Twitter to confirm his pre-season arrival on Monday. The 20-year-old scored 8 goals in 38 appearances across all competitions last season to help Javier Calaya's men finish 14th in La Liga. Chukwueze will be expected to play a part when Villarreal take on La Nucia in a pre-season game on Wednesday. That's in sports, and these are some of the stories that are trending in the news today. Of course, there are several other ones, but these are kind of the ones that we picked, and that we will be focusing on today. So we'll go on a quick break. When we come back, it will be time for us to analyze them, talk about them, and see where all of this is going. So do join us again. Welcome back. It's still What's Trending. Let's quickly look at the stories that we brought you today before we start to analyze them. Firstly, gunshots as protesters disrupt activities at Lagos Stadium. We also told you government to supervise El Zalzaki's travel for treatment abroad. And then herdsman menace, banditry, Lagos, Benue, Ebonyi, 5 others to acquire drones. And we also told you, okay, take the rest of it.
Okay, UNICEF says 1 million children are out of school in Kano. And we also told you that the EU is counseling ECOWAS on dangers of delayed electoral reforms. And NECA seeks suspension of forest restriction on milk importation. And lastly, Super Eagles forward Samuel Chukwueze rejoins Villarreal. So those were the stories.
These are the stories, 7 of them. We usually do 6, but it's fine. So these are some of the stories trending in the news, and we all know what I think the hottest story is that everyone is talking about, and it's still like in the news. It started yesterday. It started over the weekend,
Over the weekend,
with the arrest of the convener.
yeah, not really over the weekend, but of course the arrests triggered the whole issue on social media and things like that. The arrest of Omoloye Shiwere and the revolution now. People are just saying you shouldn't have used the word revolution now.
Yes.
But politically, what is revolution? A lot of protests are going on world over at the moment, and it's all about anti-government demonstrations. These protests are telling the government, sit up, we want this, we want that. And when you read out, the demands by this group were actually very simple. And these are things that should actually be basic should actually be fundamental to every citizen in every country. We want free education. We just read that over 1 million children are out of school in Kano State alone, minus the other 35 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Then they asked that the minimum wage of 30,000 naira be implemented. How much is 30,000? If you are talking about transportation, how long will 30,000 take you in a month? Then I think there was a last one talking about safety, security.
Yes, security in the...
A lot of people are scared to travel on the roads these days. They're afraid of being kidnapped. They're afraid of being attacked by headsmen in quotes, because these people seem to be like the spirits operating in the forest now, because Mieti Allah says our headsmen, they don't carry arms. The other day, okay, now let's even look at it this way. Arewa, the youths of the north, they gave the entire nation a 30-day ultimatum. What was done? Nothing was done. Then Shiites decided to go on a protest, release our leader. We read that the man has been in incarceration for over 4 years, okay, since 2015, December, because he actually protested. That was what led to the arrest in the first place. Then the court granted bail. Bail is not go home free, you are free for life. Bail is for you to go and come to court when you are summoned, of course. Then the federal government refused, and they explained it away by saying it's for national interest. They're trying to actually protect him from himself. That's El Zazaki. Then the Shiites group, they were proscribed as a terrorist organization. So we no longer have the right to protest in Nigeria, and Nigeria is supposed to be a country practicing democracy. What is democracy? Democracy is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. Everyone is involved. And in democracy, we're talking about public participation, popular participation. The will of the people should be heard. The voice of the people should be heard. But now when people come to say, we don't like this policy, we don't like what's happening, they are clamped down. Yeah. They're either called terrorists, or they are told, oh, this is a treasonous act, and the dead of the night, 1 a.m., someone comes to, a group of people just come to whisk you away like you are one criminal or something like that, because you're saying revolution now. Revolution now is calling for a paradigm shift. People are saying, oh, you should have used a different synonym. Even if you had said protest now or let us protest, do you think the outcome would have been different in this dispensation?
Do you think that the outcome would have been different if they had used perhaps protest now or some other, acronym or some other word?
Or say no to banditry, no to headsmen clashes.
Do you think they would have been allowed to protest, or do you think that the government would still have clamped down on the protesters? Do call us. The numbers are on your screen right now. Tell us what your thoughts are about the latest development as regards this. Now, some people are bringing different perspectives to this, right? Some people are actually saying that the convener, is doing it deliberately to try and get the attention of the international community, because if you look at the way, if you look at them, they were all wearing orange berets, and it really did have some semblance of some militancy. So I'm telling you what some people are saying.
Okay, now, so we have militancy in the Niger Delta. Okay.
Is it possible that he deliberately did it, knowing he was going to be arrested? Now, that's a school of thought, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that he was going to be arrested in order to attract international attention to what is happening in the country. Do you think, as someone who also, as we know, was a presidential candidate, who was,
first of all, Shore is actually the founder of the Sahara Reporters, so he already has enough clout, he already has enough popularity in terms of the international stage. But look at it this way, because that was part of the argument we had yesterday. The federal government hears anything protest, and we mobilize security operatives, a lot of them armed to the teeth, to go there and cordon off the area. That's just protest. Shiites or whatever it is, whoever it is protesting. Now, this is Shaware. Shaware said revolution now, and he said, oh. I was like, must the federal government actually react? Must you just dance to the tune of, anytime you hear protests, you hear that people are gathering, you just immediately go on and on the alert and start picking up people and all that. If we have such response in terms of banditry, in terms of herdsmen's clashes, I think this nation would be much, much better now. The tension we're feeling in different parts of the nation wouldn't have, they would have been reduced to the barest minimum, because a lot of people are afraid to travel. A lot of people are even afraid to sleep in their own homes because of the security issues we're having now. And I say protest and I have attention immediately. It shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't even give anybody that comes to say, I want to protest. Let the protest hold. And you see, if the protest is becoming violent, then calling the troops, calling all the goons you want to call in at that moment. But now the protest has not even held. So we are having a preemptive law now, or a preemptive enforcement of whatever order, because this to me is more like a military dictatorship, if I must say, because this time we're saying we have the right to protest, we have a right for our voices to be heard, and in any democracy we must have a strong opposition. But now in the Senate we have majority APC, House of Representatives, majority APC, and most of the states we have APC governors. So we really don't have any opposition in Nigeria at the moment. So this is the only way people's voices can be heard. Protest.
You know, on the discussion yesterday, or the guest that we had on set yesterday, you know, while giving his views on what has been going on, you know, he talked about the fact that these protests are an indication of a deeper problem, being that the presidency is not listening.
That,
you know, like you just said, they're trying to make their voices heard.
Yeah.
You are not listening to what the people are saying. You are just, I think you're in a bubble, you know, like when you reel off accomplishments and things that you have done. I mean, no doubt, let's give you credit, you have done certain things, but there's certain things that people are saying, look, we're not comfortable with this. These are some of our concerns, and for some reason you're not listening, and so they decide to take this course to really protest and to get the attention.
And if you look at it, in any democracy, protest is an integral part. You can't have a democracy that actually works without protest, without people calling for the government of the day to do one thing or the other. And this revolution is actually change. Change in policies, change in one area or the other. That's what this group is calling for. And this group, if you look at them, let's forget about the revolution now, for instance, okay, let's just, for the purpose of this discussion, call them protest now, or protest for a better Nigeria. This group, they are saying we want improved education, free education, which is achievable. We want implementation of the 30,000 minimum wage. It's not a crime. Saying that a lot of states have not actually carried out that part of their own part of the bargain. We don't want NLC to go on strike. And if you see, people are saying, oh, the NLC, the Labour and the rest, a lot of groups did not join this this protest, because people are afraid. To my mind, a lot of people are kind of scared of going out there to join the protest, because like what happened yesterday, a lot of people were injured.
They were.
These protesters, they were not armed. They were chanting. Is it wrong to actually chant? Is it wrong to actually call on the government or to do this or to even say free showery? I don't think it is wrong in any democracy. For instance, in Algeria, they've been protesting for over 24 weeks consecutively. Every Friday, they're on the streets. Hong Kong, you see them using,
of course, we saw what happened.
They're on the streets as well. It's when those protests get overboard, when they get out of hand, and we are seeing violence, destruction of infrastructure, that's when the government actually, generally, they send security forces to protect the protesters and even, not to attack them.
Yes, and even have the organizer or maybe the leader of the protests even kind of liaising with the security outfits on the ground to make sure that everything is orderly. But this is the situation now, and we're waiting to see what happens next and what the response is going to be. Where is this going? Where is this going? And we still are expecting your contribution to this. Do you think government handled it well? Do you think the conveners of the protest handled it well? Do you think they could have done it differently? Do you think that what is happening now is detrimental to democracy in our country. Let us know your views. Okay, let's go on to the next story, which is in a way kind of still
Related.
part of it. I'm talking about Zaki's travel. That's a good thing, at least. He's being granted bail. Well, he's being granted the permission to go for treatment, however, with strict supervision.
Yeah.
I actually read an article that said an official of the Kano government has to accompany him,
yes.
and it has to be in the country.
In the particular hospital that he said he was going for treatment.
And nowhere else, because we know that Iran had initiated at some point said, look,
come
you
this
release
way
him
and all
to
that,
us so we can take care of his treatment.
Okay.
You know, but in this case, he's being granted that permission to go travel and all of that. So this is one of the issues also, you know, that had been in the news for a while with the prescription. It started with the prescription of the body or the organization.
The organization was actually proscribed because they protested.
They protested, of
so
course,
maybe we'll have Revolution now being proscribed again as a terrorist organization because they're already being charged for treason and all that. Because this is a detention of 2015, 2016, 17, 18, 19. This is the fourth year. Must we wait for the people to protest before you obey a court order? It's also an integral part of democracy. You don't oust the constitution, you don't oust the judiciary if you want your democracy to succeed. And let me go back a bit. There's this article, it's a newspaper cutting, I wish I had it here. It was by the current president now, President Muhammadu Buhari, before he actually succeeded in his bid to become president. In 2011, he called for a revolution, and he urged Nigerians to actually carry out a revolution like Egypt. It was a caption on that newspaper. I wish we had it, I wish I could bring it out. But that's to show you that in that regime, you were allowed to talk about having a revolution, calling on Nigerians generally to have a revolution, but you were not arrested. Then this group, I'm not a Muslim, of course, and they are protesting. They want freedom, just like you, just like I. They want to be able to say what they want because they are just a sect different from the other sects. Yes. They are targeted, and the leader is incarcerated, sons killed, and all that. How did Boko Haram start? This was how the leader of the group was killed, and a lot of people suddenly decided that this guy is a hero because he was killed in such a way. He became a martyr, and people had a lot of, he then had a lot of followers in his death, and that's how Boko Haram started, and the menace is still on till date. So must we wait for it to get to this extent before granting bail to El Sasaki?
Okay. I'm told that we need to be rounding off, and I'm like, when did that happen? We're just getting started, right? But yes, and these are things that people are definitely going to be talking about for quite a while. And while all these things are going on, we just really, you know, also are calling on government to remember what they stand for. Remember what you promised the country. Remember what you promised Nigerians when you took over, you know, the reins of power. So it is important. Oh, we do have a call. I needed to cut my outro. We have a call. Oh, it dropped. Well, if you can still do that before we leave here, that would be really nice. I understand the call was from Akwa Ibom. But like I said, you know, this is an appeal. You need to listen to what the people are saying. You promised us change when you came in, and people still are expecting that change, and you still are in a position to bring about that change in a positive way, you know, without clamping down on freedom of speech, you know, and the rights that are associated with association, and even the right to protest, to verbally express, you know,
dissent,
a feeling or a concern or whatever it might be. So we are making that appeal, and we are calling on all of the agencies of government that are involved to listen to the people. That's the only way in which you can, at this point, also regain that confidence that was first reposed in you. Okay, so we have several other things which we cannot really get into, but it's fine. It is in the news, and we will ask you to stay with Love World Plus, because later on in the day, we will be having our news bulletins. It's called World News here on Love World Plus, where you definitely will be getting updates on any of these stories. Plus, our website is there for you. You can go straight to www.loveworldplus.tv. When you go to the website, you still will find more news items plus other educational videos right there. And you can go a step further and download our app, our mobile app. It's called Love World Plus, which is available for iOS and Android and any of the online stores. So you do that, and in that way you will have us on the go. Okay, so we'll be rounding off this particular segment of What's Trending. Thank you so very much for being a part of this. Thank you so much, Itohan Olomu-Agbodo, who was with me on What's Trending today. Just in case you missed when I introduced her first, she is a legal practitioner, and she is the host of 2 TV shows here on Love World Plus, The Courthouse, as well as You.gov. So thank you very much, Itohan,
Thank you,
for being
Zoe.
here today. And thank you very much for the call that we would have taken from Akwa Ibom. Perhaps the next time we will be able to take that call. But thank you very much once again. Well, the program does continue right after this time out, so don't go away.